What's up everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to take a closer look at an Instagram post that I put up yesterday, and yes, that is a video of me removing super glue from my Vimingi Tang's mouth via bone cutters and a dental pick. Now we're going to talk about everything that led up to this moment as well as how the fish is doing today, and I'm going to give you guys some tips and tricks to help prevent this from happening to your fish when you're adding coral to your reef tank. So let's go and get started. Alright, a little disclaimer, there were no fish harmed in the making of this video. I know it looks kind of cruel, but trust me, he's doing great. He's back in the 300-gallon tank, living life to the fullest. He's a very small fish in a very big system, and he's doing just fine. So let's move on with the video. Now, if you've been in the hobby for an extended period of time, you've probably added coral to your tank, and then you attach that coral to your rockscape using superglue. Now, unfortunately, even if you use a little bit of superglue, sometimes it actually sticks out the side of the frag and it's exposed to the rest of the tank, and fish sometimes like to nip at that glue. Now, there's a couple different situations that come from that. One, which is most common, is the fish will just get a little bit of super glue on the side of their lip, and it really doesn't impact their breathing or how they eat, and then eventually just falls off in a few days. Now, the other thing that can happen is exactly what this fish went through, and that is ingesting some of the glue and then gluing their mouth completely shut. Now, that could be a very bad thing. It could prevent them from breathing properly as well as eating, and eventually they will starve to death. It's just something that I've dealt with in the past. It's a very, very sad thing, especially when you have a fully stocked tank. Like in the 125, I had a Tang come in, did this exact same thing, swam into the rock work, and basically I saw it for a few days and then it just completely disappeared. The cleanup crew ended up taking care of it, and that's a really crappy way to go, and I'm totally at fault for that. So what I've done over the last year or two is I've kind of trained my fish to come to me, and I know that sounds really weird, but I hand feed my fish all the time. Every single day I feed them. So what happened in the case of this Tang is, even though he was a little bit of a pain to get out, but I'll show you guys the net that I actually caught him in with the 300-gallon, but when he bit the glue and completely shut his mouth, he freaked out. Now, a few minutes later, he kept on coming up to the surface of the water and kind of waiting there. When I'd reach in and try to get him, he'd swim away, and we kind of played that game for about 15-20 minutes, and then him up and just let me catch him in this very small net, and then I was able to take care of him. He knew he messed up. I knew that I had to catch him one way or another, and with an 8-foot by 2-foot by 31-inch tall tank, it was just not going to be possible unless he came to me, and which he did. So I'm very thankful that he did that, because he just got out of quarantine a couple weeks ago. He spent 6 weeks in quarantine. He went through full-blown ick. We put him in hypo, we did copper, we did the antibiotics, and we got him through it. He's back in the main display, and then 2 weeks later he ends up gluing his mouth shut. I will tell you right now that most of the tangs or fish that do this once never do it again. When I put glue in the tank, all the fish have ever gotten glue on them don't even go near it. It's always the new guy. So we'll go ahead and move on to some of the things that you can do to actually prevent this from happening in your system. Alright, so a few things that you can do to prevent this from happening to your fish. 1, feed your fish before you do anything in the tank with super glue. Now, I do that. I feed them a ton of food, and obviously it works for most of the fish, but as you can see, it doesn't always work. So just keep that in mind. The second thing you can do is go ahead and just use enough super glue to hold the frag in place. Don't overdo it. And when you put the frag over there, set it where it needs to be, let it set up a little bit, and then keep your hand within the area just to kind of scare the fish away for several minutes if you want to go ahead and let that glue set, and it won't be able to be kind of picked off and chewed on. Now, the third thing I would say is have a personal relationship with your fish. Now, that might sound weird to anybody who's not really part of the hobby yet, and I might seem like a kind of like a Looney Tune, but I'll tell you right now that my fish are part of my family. I love each and every one of them, and I do everything I possibly can to get them through quarantine, give them the best food and the best environment that I can afford every single time. And when something happens to them, I get upset. It's just kind of how it is. I love animals, not so much people, but I really do love animals. Now, what you can do is go ahead and build that personal relationship up by hand feeding them like I do. They'll get used to your hand being in the water. They'll get used to associating your hand and fingers with good things. And so when something like this happens, they'll come to you just like this Tang did, looking for your assistance. So just keep that stuff in mind. Now, before I let you guys go, I just want to give you a couple tips and tricks to kind of make this process as smooth as possible for you and your fish. Now, make sure you handle your fish with care. You don't want to be squeezing on them too much. You do want to keep them secure, and if you're dealing with tangs, watch out for the tail because they will get you with that barb. I've had it happen more times than I could probably count. The next thing you want to keep in mind is that the fish is going to be extremely stressed out, so just take caution, monitor them once you get them back in the tank, or if you have a quarantine tank, it wouldn't hurt to go ahead and put them in quarantine for a few days just to kind of see how they adapt to being kind of roughed up through this whole process. Now, when it comes to actually doing this, take your time. There's no rush here. Time is all that you have right now. What I like to use is this little magnifier. I actually use that for inspecting new coral frags when they come in, looking for pests, eggs, all that kind of stuff. I really love this thing. It's actually sitting over my coral saw there, and I really like using this because of the light and the magnification. But if you don't have that, that's completely fine. Just, you know, take a look at it and take your time. Now, the next thing I always keep on hand is bone cutters and dental picks. I usually use the dental picks for picking off stuff on coral frags, but yeah, I always have those around, and they work perfectly, as you can see. Different types of them, not only for breaking up the glue inside the mouth, but also getting that final piece out at the end. So those are just some tips and tricks for you guys to get through this whole process. And again, if you've been here for a while and it hasn't happened to you yet, it's probably going to happen eventually. So just be aware of it and take the steps to prevent it from happening. Either way, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.